My favourite thing that I've seen at Eurobike this year has got to be the KS Lev Circuit wireless dropper post. It's just a really neat solution. Battery's inside so it won't get damaged. It's much faster than the other rival on the market, and they reckon it's only going to get faster once they've developed it.
MRP has a new suspension fork. It's called the Ribbon, named after a trail in Colorado. It is a enduro fork, so it comes in 140 to 170 millimeter versions for 27 5-inch wheels and 120 to 150 for 29ers. It's got 35 mil stanchions and some pretty clever features. MRP uses a interesting volume adjust system to increase or decrease the amount of progression in the fork, which is a big change from companies like, say, Fox or RockShox that rely on tokens. The MRP system allows you to dial it on the outside without fussing with the internals. Another cool feature is the use of blow-off valves on the back of the fork. Something we've seen on downhill forks is to use a pair of little bleed valves on the back of the fork that make it super easy to get the fork back in working order.
The most interesting thing I've seen this year on the mountain bike side is the Cannondale scalpel. Now, it's a proper cross-country race bike, but it's a cross-country race bike which I think has got a really good potential to be a pretty good fun trail bike too. It's pretty long, it's pretty slack for a race bike, and you can put a drop post on it, so it should be really good if you want to go out and hit the trails when you're not racing.
My top mountain bike pick from Eurobike 2016 is the SRAM Shock Whiz. So you screw it into your shock or your fork, you then cycle the fork, put a little bit of information into the app about the type of riding you do, and then go for a ride. And it will give you those little hints and tips of how to set the fork up a little bit better. So it'll talk about your rebound settings, your compression settings, and also whether you need any extra volume spaces in there. It might not get it sort of totally spot on, but the idea is it will get you pretty close to an ideal setting, and from there you can fine-tune it to your personal preferences.
There's actually another small Scottish company who's doing a system that aims to provide a similar thing but works in a very different way, called Suss My Bike. So instead of working off air pressure, this actually has a position sensor, and you attach it to either end of your shock or your fork, and then it can read all the data that's going in. And that looks really interesting because you can make them, or their plan is, to make them be able to speak to each other, so then you can set up both shocks at the same time. And it's just a really interesting little project from a tiny little company. So I was really interested to see where that's going to go. Wiffle waffle, waffle wiffle.
My favorite bike from this year's show is the new SB5. They redesigned it. It's got the same amount of travel as the old one, so 127 in the rear, built around a 150 fork. But they made it longer, lower, and slacker, the typical treatment most bikes are getting these days. But they also incorporated a host of new features, including internal routing and a clever door so you're not swearing when you're trying to fish wires and cables through the frame. Unlike the previous version, this one is now one-by specific. It also gets rid of the brace along the top tube to the C-tube, so it's got massive standover clearance. This is a bike I'm very eager to get a leg over.